everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition with your host, Lisa McGrath. That's me, Lisa. And I am joined today by Wayne Kavanaugh, who is the owner and founder of Frostfire. So, welcome, Wayne.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I originally met your team, one of your team members, at the Simcoe Golf Tournament, and I was so intrigued by what you guys did that I jumped on a call with Matt and found out what you guys did. And then when your name got dropped, I was like, I've heard this name before. This guy's known in industry. So then, of course, I ran to my people in plumbing and said, hey, this is what I know. And they're like, oh, we know Frostfire. You know Wayne, Lisa, blah, blah, blah. And they started talking to me about who you were. And I was like, okay, yes, I know who he is, but I don't know him to meet. Like, I wouldn't know him to trip on him, but I know who he is.
Right.
Because you're very popular in the industry because you're a smart guy and you're well liked.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you've just been talking to one side of the people, I suppose.
Well, let's be honest, Wayne. If you've got haters, you've made it.
Success.
Success is haters and stalkers. That's what I tell everybody because nobody has your name in their mouth and on their mind more than those two.
Yeah. No, I guess I've been around the industry for a little bit, and you get to know some people in the industry, and you work with different people as you're kind of moving through your career. And no, it's great that to have a bit of a reputation out there, like a slightly positive one, if that's okay. Yeah.
I've never heard anything bad about you. So, and I mean, like
Well, that's good.
I've been circulating this industry now very hyper focused this industry for the last 4 or 5 years. So I've worked in condo. So just so you know a little bit about me, my background is a condo. I got into condo property management when I was a board member because we were going through property managers like water. And I was
Right.
like this job can't be this hard, right? So I jumped in and became a property manager, and I wouldn't say I loved it, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because
Yeah.
people are always like, Lisa, why would you choose to do condo? And I'm like, it's just personalities, right? If you're organized, if you're smart, if you understand construction, then it's just personalities that are really the challenge because it's just a whole bunch of people coming together and they're passionate or they're angry or they have an agenda and you just got to kind of weed through it and make sense
Exactly
of
right.
everything,
Yeah.
right? It's really what it is. So I took a shit ton of psychology courses. I've got tickets galore and diplomas and certifications and got into restoration and did construction. So I walked out of property management and went into construction and did that. I did that and built my way up to being the COO of a company and then went off to do director of operations in restoration.
Good for you.
And then
Yeah.
and then I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of working this many hours for somebody else. I'm going to do it on my own. And I was in the middle of a really ugly separation. Well, the beginning stages of a really ugly separation. So I just grabbed my kids and said, I'm going to start making my own schedules. My first year out of the gate, I did really well, but I wasn't happy because I was on side of the trades. And there was nothing happening. I wanted to be an advocate. That's what I wanted to be, was an advocate for people. And so
Yep.
it makes it easy when I meet people like you who are with Frostfire who are about the same thing. I just want things to be efficient. I just want you guys to save money. I don't want there to be wasted air in your hallway or the wrong type of, I want to be able to do that. Right? So you created, which I think is super cool because we did condo chats and I listened to your presentation. And so you
Yep.
created this, it's almost, I call it like a modulator, right? It's like a modulator.
Okay.
Is that what it is?
Well, my technology, what it does is it corrects for air density changes, and it's
Mhm.
constantly doing that. So it's not really a modulator, but it does modulate in the sense that it's always making corrections for ambient conditions, and then what those conditions are going to look like by the time you take that air and bring it into a building. And by constantly doing this, always working in the background, you're always scavenging something. You're always saving a ton on fuel. You're always saving a ton on electricity. And typically these units, they run 24/7, 365. So there's ample opportunity to be able to save money all the time. And, when I first started doing this, I thought, well, you know what? If I save a kilowatt here and a gigajoule there, who cares? But you start doing the math and you start scaling this out, of course, across a year. And now you're saving people real money. Now you're into, 5 figures. And that
Yeah.
catches people's attention.
So just so my audience knows, we're talking about HVAC.
Yeah, correct. I assumed everybody knew already. No,
Well, don't assume, Wayne, you make an ass out of you
no,
and
I
me.
shouldn't. Well, I've done that plenty of times.
And that's my big thing whenever I'm on site with people, I always like it. And the guys they always say the same, well, I just assumed. And I'm like, oh, don't assume.
You don't assume.
I'm like, so I've used play on words when people assume. So I'm like, so your understanding was this, which led you to the conclusion or speculation of this, and they're like, yeah, I assumed it, and I was like, don't assume,
Happens a lot.
right? So
Yeah.
I was gonna give them a hard time when they do that, but yeah, so it's HVAC, and so you've created a system because you've been in. How long have you been in HVAC for?
Uh, Going back a couple of decades now. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but yeah, I've been around the industry. I started my career in HVAC working for a manufacturer, Engineered Air. They're one of the largest companies in North America that makes this equipment. Um, and when I was there, like I did see certain elements of laziness in the industry. It was kind of
Hmm.
it's been done this way forever. Why would we change it?
Yeah.
And it always bothered me. Um, and then when I did work as a service manager, I saw more of that. And the question always got asked, well, why do these things cost so much to run? Well,
Yeah.
because they're kind of inefficient, and there's kind of better things that we could be doing. So then when I did decide to go out on my own, I thought, what could I do? Like, what could I actually do that would make a real difference for people? And then I came up with this system. I came up with the Frostfire technology. And I've got it out there now in a lot of buildings,
Hmm.
in Calgary, Edmonton, Canmore, and I'm just trying to expand that all the time.
Yeah.
Get more and more customers, and the more data you can show people, the easier the next sale becomes.
I know. I mean, you guys kind of hyper focus on commercial and where there's spaces of multiple units. So commercial and condo is where where people are going to see the real difference because people
Yeah.
might be like, well, can we do this to my furnace? And it's like, well,
No, I have a friend of mine. He works for a builder, and he's fairly high up. And he said, "Can you do this to a furnace?" And I said, I wish it worked that way. It doesn't. There's not enough temperature differential,
no.
because it works on a return air based system for furnaces. And he said, "That's too bad." He's like, I could get you every house in the city if this were." I was like, "I would love that, but I can't do it."
Yeah. Well, and that's you designed it for multi spaces, right? For multi-family dwellings where it is buildings and
Yeah.
there's
So
more
so
than
some
20
of
units. Like you
Yeah,
said,
some
like
of some of
containers.
the areas where this is going to work the best is in, wood frame construction, concrete high rises, anywhere that's using makeup air coming into a building,
Hmm.
warehouses, any kind of facilities. One of my goals for this year is to really try and push this tech into the oil and gas facilities, because I know that they're spread out throughout, you know, all sorts of regions of this province and the country.
Hmm.
And those guys are spending a ton of money on their utilities as well. And to be able to kind of take the tech that I've been able to prove in the condo market and in the rental market, and even hotels, and now I'm thinking, okay, well, now it's time to start targeting some of the bigger guys. I can show them the numbers.
Hmm.
So that's one of the goals for this year, is to really expand into much larger pieces of equipment that move much more air, and then the savings, of course, are just going to be higher.
So that's kind of cool. So I'll tell you where my brain went is like outside of Canada is where my brain went, like Europe, because right
Yeah.
now we're not friends with the States right now.
Well, sometimes putting out a friendly hand, and businesses can try and restore some of those relationships.
Yeah, but then
I
you're
I
looking at
personally,
tariffs.
well, I have noticed this already. Like, I've noticed that trying to
Yeah.
move into that might be impossible at this point,
Yeah.
just because of how expensive that would be as a venture. But I do hope that this is kind of a short-term tariff system that's going to be put in place until the politics kind of works its way through and we all want to be friends again.
It's gonna be like 4 years unless someone like takes drastic action. I'm just saying.
I'm not even going to engage in that.
Well, it's funny because I pay attention to like all the different chat lines. And like, I follow people on social media that are very adamant about getting out truth, not conspiracy theories. They have truths. Um, Based on documentation that they've seen, obtained, researched, whatever, right? So, because I mean, everybody and their dog who has a microphone has a fucking opinion, right? So, you can't follow everybody's stuff. So I really try to look out those truth seekers, and there's a few of them in Alberta and quite a few of them across Canada, and then there's a few in the States. And when I was paying attention, before I got on with you, I was watching this one, and I follow this lady. Her name is Lisa, much like me. We're feisty. And she's amazing. She follows the news. She's on top of it. And she found this like virtual reality video of Gaza. And it was Trump Gaza. And it was basically he took the entire nation of Gaza and turned it into like a Trump resort. And she starts laughing. At first, she's like absolutely like perplexed. Her face is just like, are we done yet? Like, you want to take over Canada. You want to take over Denmark. You want to take over Panama. You already got Google to write the American Gulf or the Gulf of America. You're coming after Gaza and trying to make, like, she's like, are you almost done? Like, you're trying to annex everybody. Like, you need to just calm down. And I'm like, so then I feel bad when I think, because whenever we would think about expanding as Canadians, it was to the States and vice versa. We're going to go into another country. Let's go to one that's friendly, that we know, that's our ally, that's kind of our brother or sister kind of thing.
Yep.
And then we don't feel so, it's not as intimidating to move into the opposing countries, right? Because we're attached to each other. And we have a lot of allegiance to each other. And then all of a sudden, all this shit blows up. And I'm just like, I feel for the Americans that are in Canada and for the Canadians that are in America. Like, their businesses. That's scary. Because now
it
it's
is.
double tariffs.
I mean, I have the ability to wait. The Canadian market is massive for what I'm trying to do. I would like to dominate the Canadian market, and then when the timing is right, I will try and start working in the U.S. Market. Anywhere where it's cold is really where my technology really, really shines. So I mean, you've got a lot of northern states that would be hugely benefited by this technology,
Okay.
but I don't want to go into a market with, a Canadian dollar sitting where it's at, and the tariffs that would be coming in. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
have to restructure a little bit to be able to do that. It
Hmm.
may be beneficial at some point, but I think for now, I think let's let the dust kind of settle and let the politicians do
Figure their
what they're
shit out.
doing. And yeah, I mean, if we can get rid of this guy Trudeau, that would help a lot.
Well, Trudeau's on his way out, but I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, I mean, like, yes, I have never. I mean, I'm. I wasn't super happy with a lot of things that went on under the Trudeau government, but in the last couple months, since everything's kind of happened, he's been a stand-up premier. I'm not going to sit here and shit on him right now, because he is speaking well. He is protecting Canada. He's doing what he needs to do while he's on his way out the door, and that's okay. And he's bowing out gracefully. And and I think that, and I know that that was an agenda, an agenda item that he pulled to say, I'm bowing out gracefully. I mean, you might as well finish strong, number one. And number two, I think it just also gave people some time to see what was moving into the lead. So,
How do you mean by moving into the lead? Like
oh,
with
like Pierre
like
Poilievre's crazy. I think he's a nutcase.
what? I,
Yeah.
I don't know if our politics is directly in line. Maybe I should reshift.
Shifting
One of,
down,
I
reverse.
will say I will say one thing, because with what I'm trying to do and the technology that I'm introducing, I've
Yep.
tried to work with some of the government organizations in terms of like funding and helping my customers.
Yep.
And to be very honest, it sounds good. It all looks great on paper, but it's all fluff. And then you read about green scandals and everything that's going on. They're lining their buddies' pockets with heat pumps and this, that, and the other. And you're like,
Yep.
oh my God. And then,
Yep.
a legitimate startup like myself is
Hmm.
reaching out saying, well, how do I help my customers afford this? They want it. And you chase down all the paperwork and you go through all of this, and it comes to nothing. And you're
Yeah.
like, they're spending all the money on advertising the program that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So this is what I will tell you. And I mean, like, between you and I, Wayne, because I genuinely like who you are and what you bring to the table as, as a professional. So I'm going to tell you, that although our politics may not align and we can agree to disagree, the blue is not in our corner as the small businesses. They're not. Unless we're in
True.
those high 6, 7 figures, they don't give a shit about us. And
No,
so,
you need
and we're
to
hustling.
look after yourself and,
Yeah.
and your own business, and then the people that you're actually trying to help. I would agree with that. Yeah.
So, because I mean,
Um,
a lot of the stuff that's going on, I mean, there's always scandals, there's always bullshit, there's always, helping your buddies out, whatever. That's always going to be a thing on some level. I mean, we do it in our everyday life. If we can give our friend a job, or if we can give them a hand. Most of us try to give them a hand up, not a handout, because
yeah,
you don't learn from a handout, right? So,
absolutely.
and I mean, I think with me, where I struggle is that it's not just the tax breaks, but then it's like you get the tax breaks, you make the rich richer, and then you privatize healthcare. Well, what the hell are we going to do? Like, you know, kids, grandkids, children, wives, spouses. Now everybody's kind of like, all of us, upper middle class, and lower are all like, we can't afford this. We're not. The whole reason we're Canadian is so that we can go into the doctor. Yes, it might take a few hours to be seen. Yes, we might not get in right away, but we're not sitting there shelling out thousands of dollars to see the doctor,
Yeah, that's and I'll
right?
give you that point. I will concede that one. It's nice to have a healthcare system that you can rely on when you need it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some broken parts to it. I mean, nothing's ever perfect. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have all of the crazy that's going on, but it is what it is, right? So, what about Toronto? Toronto would be really great for you. I mean,
Be a huge market.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And during my time with Engineered Air, like I did travel a lot, and I did get to know a lot of the service companies
Mhm.
and quite a few good influential people. It's a matter of growing at a rate that I can sustain. I don't
Mhm.
want to jump into a market that I'm not ready for, and that's kind of why I've slowly expanded through Calgary and Alberta and like that, because it's easier to manage when it's closer to home.
Yeah.
And especially when you're a new technology, if one of the service companies that I'm working with says, "Hey Wayne, something's going on here that I don't quite understand. Can you give us a hand?" It's
Mhm.
easier for me to drive half an hour or an hour and meet them on site and work through whatever problems we're having,
Yeah.
rather than, if someone in Toronto were to call me up and say, "Great tech, Wayne, love it. However, we're having a problem with an installation. We
Mhm.
don't know how to solve this."
Yeah.
Um, then I either have to look at hiring somebody to support that market, or am I on a plane trying to help support that market?
Ooh, you're on a
So
plane.
it's, well, maybe I'll just go to Tahiti or something, if I get on a plane.
Fair.
So it is. It makes sense to try and grow at a reasonable rate and in a way that you can support the technology, that people see that you're supporting the technology. I mean, one of the things that I find is that when you start from fresh with a brand new concept and an idea, it's hard enough to get people on board to believe in it. So first people have to believe in you, and then they have to start believing in the tech, and then the support comes. And if you don't have the support, what
Mhm.
are you? You're
Yeah.
nothing. Especially
Agreed.
when you're promoting something that let's just say that there's people out there that don't want to see it succeed. There are people that are very happy to let the industry just continue going the way that it's been going
Yeah.
forever
Hmm.
because it's profitable.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Are you going to? So I know you and I see each other, and I see your people a lot at the different events. So
Yeah.
we've got there's a couple events that are coming up. So are you guys headed back to Simcoe?
Yep,
Simcoe Golf Tournament?
I signed up for the Simcoe Golf. I'm going to be doing that one, and then
Are
I
you
think
going or is
later
Matt
this
going?
year. No,
Sorry.
I'll be going. Yeah, I'll be going to that
Well,
one.
I'll see you there.
I'm trying to remember what we sponsored. We sponsored something, but yeah, we'll be making a presence down there and
Me too.
say hi to everybody, and they get to see how bad of a golfer I am.
Right? Me too. I'm a bad golfer, but I bought the golf clubs and I got them labeled, and I'm like, listen, I'm gonna look the role, but I'm not gonna act it. Good with it. I got like the golf club that's got like my LPM on it. I'm like, they're like, oh, Lisa, do you golf? I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Just look in the part, everybody. Just look in the part.
yeah, I hold clubs and I drink beer. That's
Right? Me too.
I like to
Maybe if we're lucky,
socialize
we'll get
too.
paired up and then we can just suck together.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Right?
We'll just race the carts around.
I know. Be good times. I got, you know what? I always, every time I do these golf tournaments, I always get paired up with like the best people. I always like,
Yeah.
I like all my groups. I think they're great. I was with a board member the last time I was at the Simcoe one last year. So
Yeah.
last year was their first one. So I'm going this year, and I am also sponsoring. It's a small sponsorship, but I'm sponsoring them as well. And then I will be going to the CCI, and I'll be going to probably Socia, which those ones you go to too, do you not?
Yeah, Associa, I think I might sign up for that one too. You know, there's so many people that want you to participate in the events,
Yeah.
and you can't do them all, you know. So I would, because I've done the Associa one before, I'd like to maybe try and branch out. I might try the CCI, the COF. Like I like I like the COF a lot. They've been huge in helping support me right from the beginning. I mean, you would know Terry, and you know, from the first time I met Terry, he was just like, "I got to introduce you to people. I love what you're doing. I
Yep.
love how you're trying to help the industry." So, you know, I like to try and give back and help where I can with support.
Yeah.
You don't have infinite funds to support everything, obviously.
No. So, and that's fair, and that's a true statement because when you're like a startup and you're working your way through and you're niche driven, because it's not like you are everywhere inside of the industry. You are niche driven. This is your HVAC, you know, and it's a component for HVAC to help everything, you know, move in a direction that needs to help save money, help, you
Yeah,
know, not have wasted space, wasted air, however you want to put it. But it's
yeah,
the same with me. I'm very niche based. I'm condo. So,
yeah.
but so I do try to go to most of them. Most of the ones that I'm invited to, I usually go to. There are a few, like when it comes to the property managers, I will sponsor, but there's smaller sponsorships. I love the CCI. COF was thinking about doing a golf tournament, but I will not be planning that one. So I don't know who will
You
be
have enough on
planning
your
that.
plate already.
What's that?
You have
Yes.
enough on your plate.
Yes, I do. So, and then I've got the one, well, I've got the one EV event that I'm doing. So the electric vehicles, you might have seen that one come out. So with COF. So I've put that one completely together. I was only supposed to do three things and now I'm kind of doing all things. And I'm kind of not very happy about it.
So
And
you
I
made the classic mistake of showing people that you're competent. Once you do that, they're just going to throw stuff at you.
Do you know what's funny? My other half tells me that crap all the time. He's like, "Do you know why I don't show people what I'm capable of?" Because I knew what he was capable of, right? So like we'd be doing something and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, he can do this, that, and the other thing." And he'd be like, "Shut the fuck up. I don't leave me alone. I'm good in the back. Nobody I don't want to be in the front."
Yeah.
And I'm
Don't
like,
tell anyone I'm here.
right? That's the way he is. And I'm like, and then but he's very introverted. He's the quiet guy in the room. You got to be careful, you know. And then there's
Yeah,
me. I'm like the, "Oh my goodness, you're so great. Let's hang out. We're friends now." And he's like, "Oh god."
yeah,
And then I found out too much because in introvert world, when you tell somebody too much, now it's like I have to keep you around because you know too much.
yeah.
You know. So
It's yeah.
I know.
The funny thing about being an introvert, like I'm naturally more of an introvert, but I can come out of my shell. I can talk. I can engage with people. I can be fun and I can be helpful. But as soon as like I hit a point, I'm like, no, alone time. I need alone time.
Yeah.
I need to reset.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing in business because you have to be, you know, a bit of an extrovert and get out there and meet people, or you'll never do any business.
It's true. But then also, introverts are people who recharge by themselves, and extroverts are people who charge with people. So when you're tapped, you're done with people. So you are
Yeah,
introverted. It doesn't mean
yeah,
you can't exude, you know, expressive ways or be extroverted in that way where you want to engage with people and socialize. That doesn't mean you can't do that. It just means that you hit a point where you then need to go recharge your battery away from everybody. So
yeah. I would agree.
yeah.
Yeah,
But then
absolutely. I feel that.
yeah, and you know what's funny? Did you know what most introverts and extroverts will say? They'll say so extroverts will say I love hate people, which is their way of saying that there are a lot of people in the world that they don't care for. And then
Yep.
introverts are like I hate people. And I'll say, "Why do you hate people?" And they'll be like, "Because it's always something new. It can't just be a pleasant conversation. It's always got to go in one direction or another direction, or there's some sort of drama. And we don't care to hear it. We would rather sit at home and like do whatever hobby we have. Like we
Yeah.
don't care." You know, and if we are socializing, we would prefer it to be one on one or two on one or three on one versus a big group. We
Yeah.
don't like all of the people. And then, oh, not only that, but then close people, right? So I'm like, so how does that translate to you hate people? And they're like, it does. The
It just
math is
does.
there, trust me. And I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, I'm still adapting to like I've done a few presentations now for larger groups. I'm
Mhm.
still adapting to that. It still makes me a little bit queasy,
Yeah.
but I mean the one thing that kind of brings me out of my shell is that when people they say, well, this is happening and this is happening, and I just say, can I explain to you why that's happening?
Mhm.
And then then it's just the knowledge kind of takes over, right? Then it's just blah 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 blah.
But I think that's where
So
we as small business owners excel is because we're so passionate about what we're doing to help that when someone asks us a question that we know we could like it doesn't have to be on what we're doing in particular, it can be on something within that dynamic of it, but we know the answer inside out. And that's when like all of our knowledge comes pouring out and they're just standing there and they're like, oh,
yeah,
no one
yeah,
told me that, or
that
I
never
didn't
happens. Yeah.
realize. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean one of the things when I first started with this technology, the primary focus was really about saving people money. I thought if you can't save people money, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
And then as I kind of progressed through this, I realized that, you know what, there's so many other benefits that I'm not even sharing with people.
Yeah.
Um, one of them being the stack effect, where buildings, the pipes on the first, second floor, the lower floors, they freeze every year. And
Mhm.
then when I can actually explain to people why that happens and why that occurs and why makeup air systems are so important, um, that's perhaps another avenue that I will chase down this year as well, is insurance companies, because I don't
Mhm.
know if they've put the connection together as to why this occurs year and year after year after year, and they're just paying out.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to talk with decision makers
Mhm.
that actually see the value in what you bring to the table.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%. Now I'm going to venture outside of because I'm in Airdrie. So my
Yep.
base is in Airdrie, and then I do mostly in Calgary and area. I'll go out to like Banff, Canmore area, right? Oh, I'll go to
So
Okotoks if I have to. I don't really like driving south. Got a pack snack.
it's a lovely place. I love Okotoks.
Okotoks is beautiful. Don't misunderstand me. I just don't like the journey. That's all. Just kind of. I
I
mean, I'm just
suppose.
being a whiner, if I'm being honest.
What does it take to get from Airdrie to Okotoks? That's got to be over an hour.
Yeah, it's an hour 15.
Yeah, it's pretty spread out, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, you take the ring road, and I mean, like, who said we're doing 100? I don't know. So,
You're doing the speed limit, eh?
yeah, right. Yep. Sure. Of course I am. What happened? But actually, so now I can't whine too much about Okotoks because I plan to go to the Alberta Condo Expo in Edmonton.
Ooh,
Yeah. Are you going to go? Do you know anything about it?
I
CCI
don't.
North
Maybe.
puts it on. CCI North puts it on, and I can send you the stuff because right now they have the early bird tickets, so we don't spend as much because we're not members. Now I don't know if they'll accept the fact that I'm member with CCI South.
Yep.
They might move it over, so I'll ask her if I can go under membership because I'm CCI South, right? Because a lot of times they'll just cross because you're already a member, right? With the
Yeah.
so many chapters across Canada. So sometimes they'll give you the courtesy because you are a member with CCI. And then I also sit on committees. So I'm like, hey, maybe. But I think it'll be great. So I'm super excited. And then next year I'll probably sponsor it as well because the expo is a lot like the ACR. I know you guys were at the ACR
Yeah.
last year. So, and then the ACR will happen again this year. And they're actually going to I was talking to one of the guys that sits on the board for ACR, and I think they were able to snag it a little bit earlier. So it won't be in November, it'll be in October, but near the end of October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to get back down there. I've got all these signage pieces and all the paraphernalia that you hanged out. I'd like to be able to get back down there and meet some people. The
Mhm.
first year that I went there, I was nervous. Like I was just these people. I'm trying to give everybody the elevator pitch as they walk by, and I find that what's much more successful is just being super chill with people. Hey,
Yeah.
how are you? Let them look at it, let them kind of see something that gets their attention, and then, hey, what does this do? Or, and then you can jump in and
Do you know what
try and
I
help out and answer questions.
agreed?
And
Now,
I did gather quite a few customers from the ACR event, which was nice.
mhm, good.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. For me, what I like to do, it's everyone has a preference. I don't like booths. I don't like being confined and restricted. I know, right? Shocking. So, so I sponsor, and I do this. I sponsor the same thing every year at the ACR, and it's so funny. I always get everybody bugging me. They're like, "Why do you sponsor?" So I do the bathroom. I do all the bathrooms. So my logos are through the all the bathrooms, and they're like, "Why do you do the bathrooms?" I'm like, "Because everybody has to use the bathroom. You're gonna see it." And then they're gonna be like, "What's LPM?" And they're like, "I don't know if that's really smart or just kind of crazy." And I'm like, a little bit
You
of both.
know, I have to say, I think it works because every time I go to a Flames game and they have Pete the Plumber in the urinals,
Huh.
and I giggle at it every time. I think it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
but I remember the logo,
See?
so it
There's
works.
method to the madness, I guess I'll say. But so I have like the my name tag. I still have it. I have to bring it to them next year. So I get these name tags. So it tells you who I am. It has my logo and then it says sponsor. So I walk around with that and then everybody knows I'm a sponsor. It's like, which is great because then it, as a sponsor, you should be recognized because you're helping for this event to come to fruition. All sponsors, no matter how big or how small, are all coming together. And
Yep.
believe it or not, it's really not that cheap to put all of your logos in the bathrooms. People would think it's cheap. It's not cheap. So, right?
Yeah, no, it's
So,
no, you can like we were talking about earlier, you can spend a small fortune on sponsorships for whatever event that it is. So you need to be careful, you need to make sure that you set a budget for what you're going to do and you can't hit them all up in one year.
yeah,
So you pick and choose and you say, well, this year I'll do this and next year I'll do that, or we'll see how it goes. Who wants to work with me? Who
yeah,
should I try and reward for helping me?
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Anytime I have to do HVAC stuff, I mean, I'm pretty loyal with a couple of plumbers. Um,
Yep.
and I mean, my favorite, and he's actually going to be, so he came on to podcast as well. So Bob Henry's on podcast. His will drop
Love
in
Bob.
2 weeks. I know, Bob's great. He's so funny. He's like, when we were right before we got on, he's like, I don't normally do these things, Lisa. And I'm like, you're going to be great.
Yeah.
I'll be so shy. But you know what? He did great. And he's very smart. Like you guys are all very incredibly intelligent in how you speak and how you speak to your clients and how, just having the integrity and the ethics behind everything that you do. And those are all things that I pay attention to at the end of the day. You know what they say? They say, if you want to get along with someone and you want to genuinely know who they are, don't talk about religion and politics.
And
Right?
we already breached one of those.
I know. But I mean, whatever, right? Now you know a little bit about me. Now you'll be like, I know she'll go shooting. I
Hold
don't
on,
know if she
hold
might
on.
try to shoot me. No, just kidding.
Isn't your government trying to ban all of those firearms? You should hate them.
No, not at all. I don't. I mean, you're not going to like everything your government does, right? I mean, that's
It's
normal. I
true.
mean, and here's the thing with me. In past times, like when it's premieres and stuff, this is going to sound awful, but when it's premieres and stuff, I pay attention. I always pay attention to the leaders. Okay? So some people will be like, "Oh, I just bleed liberal, so I don't care who the leaders. I'm just going to vote." I'm like, "No, no, no. I need to pay attention to who the leaders are. I will throw a vote to an MLA that I may not know nothing about, but I know their leader knows what they're talking about."
Yeah, and I seem to think that most people vote kind of the same way, right?
You think?
There's either going to be one kind of key thing that grabs. So let's say, for example, you pick a conservative, and you like whether you like their leader or not, but you might like the idea of lower taxes. So
Yep.
someone might vote that way because of either the leader or one kind of a thing. And then if you're, let's say you're a liberal, you might pick one thing like communism and say you want it to go that way.
Just fucking poking the bear, eh?
You're a liberal in Alberta. I don't know what else I can do. Like,
Well, yes, I'm liberal. Right. I grew up. My parents were liberal, and I grew up liberal. But then here's the thing: as I got older, so I did throw my vote to conservative when Allison Redford was going for premier. I threw my vote to her. I
That's
like
who
her.
you chose to vote for out of all the conservatives? Alison Redford. My God.
With a woman in office, I was impressed, and I did like what she had to say. I paid attention to what she had to say. I mean, I liked Ralph Klein. I didn't mind Stephen Harper. They didn't really bother me too much. They weren't. It wasn't. Whatever. Um, I didn't. Chrétien made me laugh. I thought he was hilarious personally. And then I mean, there was a lot of things that Paul Martin did, but in Canadian governments, like I find where I struggle is that I did like Stephen Harper as the prime minister. I
Yep.
didn't struggle with him very much. I felt that he was pretty level headed, but then I'm hearing about all these different things that he's a part of, and I'm like, oh God. I'm like, why do people always have to have some sort of agenda or where, like, how deep is he in this? But then I look at people like Pierre Poilievre, and he's like in my opinion, like a Timu Trump. Like he's spouting all the same shit. He has a similar type platform. When Pierre first started, I could actually get behind some of the things he would say.
Yep.
I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, he's talking to people and I get that. And he was really all about humanizing the idea of being a politician and what it would be and listening to the people. And so I was kind of in that headspace of, okay, like Pierre for like the next like premier, sure. Because he's got a lot of Albertans' attention. But the way he thinks across the country, it doesn't sit with everybody. It doesn't sit well. Personally, I wouldn't vote for him regardless at this point. You start to get to know people as you pay attention, right? Regardless of who's
Yeah.
endorsing him and this, that, and the other thing, I don't stand behind a lot of the things that he says now. Everything is very slogany, right? So it's all like these
Yeah.
little, yeah, that's
I,
where I
I
struggle
would, I
with.
would, yeah, no, I would. I would agree that I do think that he's a bit slogany. I mean, do you know how you would vote for one guy just because you hate the other guy so much? Like
Yes.
I've gotten to this point where I think the corruption of this current liberal party, I don't think they've always been that way, but I think this particular liberal party, um, they've pushed it too far.
Mhm.
They're not center anymore. They've gone so far left that, I mean, some of the things that bother me are that, like even, free speech stuff. Like
Mhm.
you and I can have a very open, frank discussion. But I hate the idea of people telling me what I can or can't say. So for me, it's stuff like that that the liberals have introduced,
Censorship.
like hate speech laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I hate your fucking mug. Like, should I end up in prison for that? I don't think so, but if the right laws come in place, it's actually a nice mug. I'm sorry.
It says zero fucks given. I was just showing it.
It actually that's too funny.
Right? I hate your mug. Well, my mug says zero fucks given, bro. So here we go. You know? But I don't disagree with you, Wayne, because I'm not saying that I agree with everything. Like I've thrown my votes to Green, to NDP, to Conservative, and to Liberal. To me, it comes down to the leader. It comes down to their platforms. It comes down to understanding how much they're not showing us, right? Like when we're coming close to elections, I always tell the same joke, right? You've heard.
Yeah,
I think I might have told it on a podcast. I don't remember if I did or not, but you've heard the politician joke about the politician that dies and goes to the white pearly gates, and then they give him a decision of whether he gets to choose if he goes to heaven or hell. Did you hear this joke?
I haven't. You
Okay,
may continue.
so politician dies, goes up to heaven, stands in front of St. Peter. St. Peter says, well, we treat you guys a little differently. He goes, you get a chance to choose where you're going to go. And the guy's like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to choose to go to heaven. And he's like, well, you got one day in heaven, you got one day in hell. That's how it works. And he's like, that's fine. So he goes into heaven and it's very tame. It's boring. It's typical, people, there's just people kind of walking around, kind of, smiling, whatever. And he's just like, oh, God, I gotta live in this for the rest of my life. This is bullshit. Super boring. Then he goes down, he gets flashed down to hell. Devil's there, he's wearing a suit. He's like, hey, he's like, how's it going? He's like, great. And the guy's like thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm going to walk through this like fiery, like brimstone hell with caves and people screaming. He's like, I already know where I'm going. It's going to be boring for the rest of my life. And sure shit, he opens the door, walks into hell, and it's nothing. It's like a resort with like condos and race cars and like golf and like beautiful, beautiful people everywhere. And he's like, yeah, he's like, this is what it is every day here. And he's like, oh, he's like, I did not expect hell to be this. I thought it'd be like a pit of fury and people screaming their heads off and whatever. And he's like, no, no, no. He's like, people always give hell a bad rap. He's like, it's really not that bad. And the guy's like, okay. And he's like, think about it. He's like, hell is about sin. Why wouldn't I just reissue the sin that you've chosen to partake in anyway, right? And he's like, yeah, it's a good point. So the next day he goes up, St. Peter goes, did you choose? He goes, well, I hate to say this, but I think I'm going to go to hell. I choose hell. I'm going to go to hell. And he's like, oh, okay. So then the devil comes up and grabs him, goes back down, pushes him through the door. And what does he see? He smells brimstone. He sees fire everywhere, pits. And he's like, what the fuck is this? He's like, you told me that we would end up in the same sins. And he's like, ah, he's like, yeah, well, yesterday, he goes, yesterday we were campaigning. Today you voted. So there you go.
Yeah, that's
And
truth, right?
I'm like, there's so much truth to that. Like, it's so funny. That's why I always say, like, when people talk about politics, I'm like, it's going with the devil you know versus the devil you don't, which is
The
why I
devil
think
you
Justin
don't,
got back in, you know, and I'm not saying I didn't vote for Justin the second round. I think I went,
yeah.
I don't remember if I went NDP or if I went Green. Because I was just like, I think I threw a vote. I was like, I don't like any of them. So I'm just going to throw. But you know what, though? I do like Elizabeth May from the Green Party. She's feisty. Have you
Is she
ever?
the one that drinks a lot publicly?
Maybe she's not having a good time. She's getting in, you know? She's getting the fucking dirt from her people. Can't do that. You gotta have some drinks.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know. I don't know if she's out having beverages, tasty beverages with people, but I mean, I wouldn't blame her. I mean, it is politics. I mean, I think you have to drink. You're either drinking or smoking crack if you're a politician at this point.
Well, they've legalized all of that.
I don't think they've legalized crack yet, but
Well, give Trudeau another term. He'll get there.
no, he won't take another term because he's stepping down. But they've got replacements for the Liberal government, and I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're bad replacements. I think they're a lot better than what we've seen in the past, because there were times where I was looking at the Liberal government and I'm like, we can't vote this idiot in. Are you kidding? Does he know how to wipe himself? Like, who ties his shoe? You know,
Exactly.
like, there are times
Yeah.
where I think that. And even though I am like, and I mean, we also have to remember that the right and the left are going to take small things and blow them out of proportion
Of course.
in media,
That's what
right?
politics
So
is.
it's like, yeah, so it's like the liberals will be like, we're going to paint a sidewalk, you know, rainbow color to support LGBTQ, and we're going to investigate on this other aspect of why there's more things coming into the, you know, 2+ LGBTQ Q++ alphabet mafia garbage craziness. Because I'm very supportive of the LGBTQ, but I'm not supportive of all the extra added letters. Like, LGBTQ to me kind of explained everything, kind of covered everything, I thought, you know, so I think it's just complicating it now. That's my opinion. But, you know, and then the right will take it and be like, oh my God, they're going to make us do all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, they're just supporting gay pride. And the area that they're doing it in, they got approval because there might be a higher concentration of LGBTQ in that community, or there's a lot of supporters of LGBTQ. So it's not a big deal. Besides, it's a fucking rainbow. Who doesn't like rainbows? Just because a rainbow means something to them doesn't mean, like, I see a rainbow. Do you ever see a rainbow with sundogs? Or am I going to be like, that's fucking gay? Like, come on.
You're gonna get me.
Like, come on. It's a rainbow. Everybody likes freaking rainbows.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, whoever you are, whatever you want to do, as long as you're not hurting other people, don't care. Like, you can be proud of that, no problem with it. Where I think it went off the rails a little bit is when they started, like you suggested, like they added like all these letters and stuff. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
Right?
Like, am I part of this and no one told me? Like, how many letters are in this now? Like,
No.
so I don't know. I think it did get a little ridiculous. It needs to be kind of reined in a little bit so that
It
people
does.
don't look so eccentric.
I'll tell you why it does. it needs to be reined in because their movement was so powerful, and it's now become a farce amongst a lot of people that were supporters and people that are even part of it. There are
Yeah.
gay, trans, lesbian, and queer that are now standing back and going, I'm not part of that. I don't
Well,
associate with that.
exactly. And I would agree with that. Like once you go too far, it kind of becomes a bit of a joke on itself.
It muddies it.
And it does. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly
It's,
right.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine. So he's on podcast and he's a trucker. And I asked him about the convoy crusade there. I didn't understand it. And he said it started off properly. It was about the unsafe road conditions we are on. It is about the amount of highway of tears we travel on and how dangerous it is and how we're always at fault if something happens. That's what the convoy was originally about. Then it turned into COVID and treatment and all these other things. And then this woman got involved and decided to start spouting her mouth off. And he's like, it got lost. But the whole reason was because we were traveling during COVID. You couldn't stop doing export import. And he's like, and the road conditions were shit. And we had nowhere to go because everybody was closing their doors to us because it was a pandemic. That's what we were upset about. It was our
Yeah.
traveling. And he goes, and I'm like, would have never even thought that's what the convoy was about because of the way it was publicized. And he's like, yeah, because it got muddied. It was a good movement in the beginning, but then it just turned to shit.
Yeah. You know, just taking kind of like what happened during COVID. And Jesus, I don't want to jump into COVID too much because we could talk about that all afternoon.
Right.
But one of the things that I found ridiculous that happened during COVID is that people didn't know how to react. And you saw businesses and you saw particularly old age facilities, and they started making very dramatic moves. They're saying, well, we need to have like charcoal filters, MERV 15, MERV 18, all these high level filters. And they weren't moving any air anymore into their buildings. And then they decided, well, you know what? We can't control it. Let's just shut these things down. And then they had no fresh air circulation moving through the bit. Like just the judgment calls that were made were unbelievably bad. And what most people don't realize is that if you're bringing air in from outside on a roof on a minus 25 day,
Yeah.
there is no COVID in that air. So why are we filtering fresh air that would actually help air exchanges in buildings? And it was
Well,
just the fear levels that kind of control people's minds. And they were like,
fear
no, we got to
mongering.
steal off the
Yeah.
building.
Well, here's the double-edged sword on that one. I agree with you, Wayne. I agree with you that when you got a large building, is there a chance that maybe a fleck of the COVID virus could get in through your building through the sure, it's a possibility. But guess what's a bigger possibility? That shared air recirculating with one
100%.
person sick.
100%. Yep.
So
And then, and if you're exchanging air, old air goes out, new air comes in, you're keeping your contamination levels lower.
yeah.
Yeah. But the second that you decide, well, you know what? We don't want to bring COVID in from the outside world because the outside world is dangerous. And then now it's just pure stagnant air in
Yeah.
these facilities. Like no wonder it ran rampant.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. It was hard to even talk people down off those shelves, off those ledges too, because once they got things in their mind, like, nope, COVID's outside, inside's safe.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I tried to help you.
Right? Give me 1 second. I'm going to open my door. My dog's standing there. And if I don't do it, he's going to be bad. What are you doing? Sorry. If I don't open the door, he's a big bully and he'll like he's a bully breed. He'll like drink out of my toilet and get into things. So, yeah, it's like a child. So, I just opened my door for him so he would be like, because he's like, what are you doing in there? I need to touch you. Because bully breeds are a suck. There's a lot of people who have misconceptions about bully breeds. He had an amazing owner. I'm just kind of like fostering him. I do want to find him a home. I don't really want to keep him, but he's with me right now and he's just the sweetest thing in the world. Like he's like 120 pounds.
Ooh,
But he's like
big boy.
he's so well behaved and he's you know what I mean? Like just an amazing dog. But he's my buddy, so he likes hanging out with me. Of course, right?
Cool.
'Cause they are big
Yeah.
sucks. They're like, "Oh my God, somebody please touch me. I'm so lovable. I'm so lovable."
I need attention.
Yeah, so now he knows my door's open, so now he's like, "Oh shit, she's on to me." But yeah, so no, but I agree with you. With the COVID, it went. See, like I've listened to all the conspiracy theories, not all, a lot of them. I've heard a lot of them. And I did a podcast where I said to people, if you made the decision to get the shot or you didn't, that's a personal choice. Everybody needs to back the fuck off. I'm tired of hearing about how, oh, you took the shot, now look what's in it. Now look what you've done. Like, piss off.
Yep.
Everyone did it for their own personal reasons. I did it for personal and professional. I'm not someone I vaccinated my children. Both my kids are fully vaxxed. I'm fully vaxxed. And then when COVID came along, I was like, they don't know really what's going on. From what I understand, this is derived from the SARS vaccine, which has been around for 20 years. That's at least
Yep.
what they're telling us. Worst case scenarios, we get a couple of side effects, call it a day. So
Yeah.
it's like, here we go, right? Now, for the people that didn't want to vaccinate, I don't blame them. They're allowed to sit at my dinner table. I'm not upset whether you were anti-vax entirely or whether you were just anti-COVID vax. The anti-vaxxers that are completely anti-vax, unless they have a legitimate reason, hear me
Yep.
out on this. They have adverse effects on anything. And they're like, listen, I'm allergic to a lot of the stuff that's in there. It's a bad day for me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. They're usually pretty easygoing, but the anti-vaxxers, I don't really have a lot of anti-vaxxer friends that are like full-blown anti-vaxxer. I don't have a lot of them.
No.
I find they have a very different mindset. And it's not right or wrong. It's a little bit extreme for me. So I kind of stand back because I went through cancer, I went through stuff, and I did a lot of naturopathy. I did a lot of stuff to learn about my body and how it works and this, that, and the other thing. And I took all of the different avenues, but there are some things like, some people would say, oh, well, you got cancer because you took the COVID shot. And I'm like, that's not nice.
No.
I'm
No.
like, don't do that. I'm like,
You know, I too kind of have some opinions on COVID.
yeah,
Most of those I'll keep to myself just because I know that there are strong opinions on both sides. But
there
what I
is.
really, really hate that happened during COVID is that if this was during COVID right now and you and I were having this conversation,
Yeah,
like it would drive us apart. It was nuts what happened.
yeah.
Like you couldn't even have a reasonable conversation with people.
Mm-mm.
I mean, like I saw people that were friends that are no longer friends because of the disagreement in an opinion of
Had that
what's going
happen.
on.
Yeah,
I myself, like, my neighbor across the street,
yeah.
he, my neighbor across the street, he's a cancer researcher for kids. A
Yeah,
really important job. Like,
yeah.
a lot of respect for the guy, very smart individual. And he got pulled from cancer research to study COVID during this time. So there was like a 2-year period where he wasn't studying cancer anymore. He was studying COVID.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, like we argued and we disagreed a lot just because of some of the fundamental freedoms that had been taken away from us.
Mm-hmm.
I really hated the idea that if you don't wear a mask, and some of these masks were fucking stupid. Like people were wearing rags around their mouth that these things wouldn't stop water from getting through.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was ridiculous, let alone like a virus that's going to find its way if it wants to.
That's right.
And at the end of all of this, we ended up having a bit of a heart to heart, and we talked, and he was just like, yeah, this whole thing was fucking stupid. He's like, and he got to see a lot of this data and a
Yeah.
lot of this research, and he was just like, this was so fucking dumb. So it was a dark time in our history, I think, where we just turned on each other because of our views, and we didn't respect each other. That even if you're disagreeing with what I'm saying now, at least you're listening to me and we're having a conversation. There were people that would just walk away from each other
Yeah.
because
No.
of their views.
Yeah. And see, my family, like my mother, came from the medical industry, and she was very like, oh, like hyper. She's like, you should tell them that you have a handicapped brother so you can get the shot early. And I'm like, I don't need to get the shot early. I don't live with you. I'm fine. When my time is ready, I will make a decision. And I didn't go in right away. Like I
Yeah.
waited to go in.
Yeah.
I wasn't completely sold on the
Neither was
shot. I wasn't
I.
completely sold. Now, the reason why I went, and I only did 2, and my doctor was like, oh, are you getting the boosters? I'm like, no, I did my fucking civic duty. Like, I needed
Yeah.
to continue to work. Single mom by myself, raising 2 kids. I just started my company. So I was like, and then of course the trades that I was working for, they were going down. I wasn't.
Hmm.
So I was still running their operations and
Right.
making sure they were bringing money in because I was now vaccinated and I wore the masks. I did everything to make everybody else feel comfortable. I was fine. It didn't
Yep.
bother me. I was like, that's fine. I'll do this because I need to keep making money. It's not I vaccinate anyway. Worst case scenario, I'm down for a week. It is what it is. Let's go. Because I mean, sometimes the vaccine will just make you sick,
Yep.
like give you the actual virus, right? So because it's supposed to be a dead virus, that's what it's supposed to be, right? So, but regardless, like even myself and my other half, like we would joke about it. I was like, oh, COVID's just an influenza, and I know that my family would be like, no, it's not, Lisa. COVID's real, and I'm like, okay, but I had COVID. Do you
Hmm.
want to know how I found out? Because somebody called me and told me that they were diagnosed with COVID. I had zero idea. I was asymptomatic.
Yeah. It affected different people different ways. I mean,
That's right.
one of the conversations that I had with one of the, at the time I was a service manager, and I talked with one of the facilities managers at an old age facilities, or like a, elder care,
Yep.
and they said, "Well, do you know how many people that actually die from the flu?" And I was like,
More.
"No." And they were like, "Yeah, well, there was more people that had died from the flu, but then people weren't dying from the flu anymore. The same number of people were dying from COVID." And I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like,
And then there was, it even got more complicated because people who were already autoimmune compromised, or if they were just compromised in any way. So whether it was cancers, whether it was like lupus, whatever it was, any autoimmune or cancer, if they died from that and they were pretty much, not that I'm trying to sound like an asshole, but they were almost kind of scheduled to die, and then they got COVID, it was marked COVID. It wasn't
yeah,
marked cancer. It wasn't marked, complications due to whatever. Like if you had heart, so there. I'm not going to sit here and say that COVID, whatever COVID was, or however it came about, however if it was fabricated, whatever. I'm not going to get into it with people, but what I'm going to say is, however it came about, it exacerbated underlying conditions for certain people.
did, yeah, for certain.
So those people struggled or died. And
Yeah, what
that
are they?
is nothing to laugh about. That is something that's not fair. And these are people that both did. You've got some on one side that vaccinated and some on the other side that didn't vaccinate. And on both sides, people died or people were
Yeah,
hospitalized on both
yeah,
sides. So I'm like,
yeah,
to me, I'm like, we're not the enemy of each other, right?
exactly right.
So,
Yep.
and I think that that's where government kind of relies on how outcomes are going to come about, is how much of a divide can they create inside their own country. Like what's going on with our neighbors in the south. I'm not going to lie to you. Like today is a day where everybody's like, we're not buying American if you're Canadian, and then there's Americans on the other side doing the same thing, supporting Canadians. And I'm like, I'm going to do what I think is right, which to me, I don't want to become the 51st state. I think that that's an awful thing. I'm Canadian. I was born Canadian and I'm very proud Canadian. I have my little maple leaf tattooed on my hand. So, I'm a very proud Canadian. I'm not an American. And if I
Yeah,
wanted to be an American, I'm old enough that I could have went across the border, got my citizenship, and then became an American. I chose not to. So I think it's very bold and arrogant for someone to try and say they're going to take over a country and that they're going to try and create economic downfall
yep.
and strain. And I think that that's a horrible thing to say to someone who's been giving you your crude oil at like discounted prices, you know? Like,
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. The interesting thing about Trump, though, is I don't think he has any intention of taking over Canada. I think it is just look over here, bark, 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 and then over here something else is happening. It's a huge distraction. I think that's really what this is about. I personally think that Trump hates Trudeau. I think he hates him, and he
of
just
course he
wants to
does.
embarrass the hell out of him. And he and I don't think that the relationship between Canada and the United States is going to improve until Trudeau is gone. And I think when Trudeau is gone, it might be a bit of a healing block.
Oh, it's not just Trudeau. Trump's got to go too. The T's have to go.
Well, he
The T's
he's
have to
not going
go.
for 3.5 years, right? Like,
Well,
or
I
three
mean,
3 years 9 months.
Maybe somebody in the States will get tired of him. I don't know.
You're gonna get me in trouble.
Right? I don't know. I'm just speculating. I'm just
Yeah,
speculating. But
yeah.
you know,
But like to kind of to your point, like what you're talking about is like, the not buying American, not buying Canadian. So you've got these assholes on both sides of the border that, they're collecting our tax dollars and they're living large and spending it and
right?
doing all of this. And it's driving this wedge in between ordinary Americans and ordinary Canadians. And you know what? I don't have a problem with Americans.
Me
They're
neither.
nice people.
Yeah, a
But
lot of them
they're
are.
creating this whole,
Yeah,
fuck you, and
yeah,
it doesn't need to be that way.
yeah. I agree. I agree with you. And that's where I say, like, this is where the divides come. Like, when it comes to COVID, when it comes to this, they're creating divide amongst the people and controlling it. So they're puppeteering all of us by saying, oh, this is what's happening. Like, you've got the people that are mega in the States and then all the other people. So it's like 40% are mega, 60% are not. Right. And you've got so many people that are like, we support Canadians and we don't want this to happen. But I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I do think this is let me show you what the right hand is doing, but not the left,
Yeah, exactly
right?
right.
Because
I
that's
think
how a
that's
lot of
really
things
what this is
happen.
about.
Because in the
Yeah,
Canadians are so hyper focused on what he's doing, but they're not paying attention to everything. But we are right now. We are paying attention to a lot of things. Like we see how he's communicating with NATO, with Russia, with Elon Musk. I have a friend of mine. He calls him Mango Mussolini and Adolf Musk.
things
I'm like,
didn't
oh
end
yeah.
well for Mussolini.
What's that?
Things did not end up well for Mussolini.
We know. So I think that's maybe why he said it. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
you know
and
what though? You know what I'm super thrilled about though is
what's that?
Canada beat the shit out of the Americans in the hockey.
Right? It's our sport.
Four
Did you see?
Nations.
Okay, so there's a Canadian that's I think he's in Ontario. I'm almost positive he's in Ontario. His tag is Copy 613.
I don't know this.
Yeah, I think it's what it is. Anyway, he's hilarious, and so he's got merchandise, and I bought some, and it says Canadian as fuck on it. One says, "Does a bear shit in the woods?" I didn't know that was a Canadian phrase. I say it all the time. Does a bear shit in the woods? And I thought for sure that just everybody just knew that phrase. And then I started talking to Americans, and I was like, they'd ask me something. I'm like, "Oh, it's a bear shit in the woods," and they'd be like, "What?"
Where are you from?
Right? Or for fuck's sakes, that's something else we say apparently. So he has all of these different phrases, and there's one that I bought, and it says "not for sale," and then there's another one that says "our country, our game."
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, our
Yeah,
country,
no,
our game.
I
And I
watched
was
I
like,
watched that game with the family, and like, just you it almost happened in slow motion where the pass came across to McDavid, and I was like, and I think everyone, we reacted the same way, like, come on, and
yeah.
oh, it was so exciting.
Well, and
Mm.
there was a lot of publicity in regards to that game, and it was like it wasn't just a hockey game for Canada. It wasn't. Canadians
No,
went out there and they were like, "Fuck you, we're gonna show you who we are." And it's funny because I'm listening to all of these people, and they're like, "Do you know the Geneva Convention came about because of Canada? Because we went and burnt down your White House because we're savage. We're not. We don't collect prisoners because prisoners eat our food, so we just shoot us on sight." And I'm like, "Yeah, we are pretty savage." I'm like, it's
Um,
like Canada's like the sleeping bear, or the dragon that sleeps. It's like everybody thinks we're nice and we're wonderful, and then all of a sudden
yeah,
you piss us off, and they're like, "Oh, you don't have a big military. We don't need a big military.
yeah.
We're
Yeah, no,
efficient."
I do tend to agree with that, about the kind of the Canadian philosophy is like we kind of have this, we're the nicest guy in the world until we're fucking not.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
think that's kind of the Canadian way.
yeah. Don't take our kindness for weakness.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we'll show you who we are. Because when I was laughing when everybody was coming back with the Geneva Convention conversation, and they were like, the Geneva Convention is a thing because of Canada, right? Like we spanked you guys and we burnt down your White House, and everybody. I'm just like, and they talk about that war, and they go off, and they're just like, they're sitting there, and they go, when Canadians go to war, we don't take prisoners. If you are in front of us, you're dead. We
Yeah.
don't help you. If you're maimed, we just shoot and kill you. And it's funny because I think about it and I think about the way we are as like, cause I mean, I grew up with hunters for uncles and we're all the same. It's like, well, you need to be humane. You don't want to suffer. And I'm like, we do the same thing in war. We're insane.
You
It's like,
know,
well, we don't want you to
I've got
suffer,
to be
boss.
honest with you.
So
You're one of the oddest liberals that I've ever met.
why?
You totally come across as a conservative.
Yeah,
You
no.
really have conservative values. I just think you don't
Alberta.
like the name. What if we were to change it for you?
No, because I don't like Danielle Smith. I think she committed political suicide when she walked across the floor, and I don't like all of her politics. And
Oh,
I
you're
don't
going
like
back all those years. You remember?
yeah, I don't like any of that shit. The minute she walked across the floor, I thought that was political suicide, and I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." And then she became our premier, and I was like, "Well, who?" Oh, never mind. I won't say that on camera. Who do you know? Who do you know to get into this position? And then she's like flying down and shaking Trump's hand, and I'm like, he doesn't give a fuck about you, lady. Like, what
Yeah, I don't
can
know.
you?
That was a bit of an oddity, wasn't it?
It was, and then Kevin O'Leary, like, what are you doing? Like, pick a side, bro.
I think he just likes the drama and he likes the attention.
Yeah, I do.
You can tell, when he gets on TV, he likes talking and he likes kind of getting things going and
Well,
stirring the pot.
yeah, well, he's a full blown narcissist. You can see it in his face. He's just like it's like zero accountability and like everything is about him and how all of his struggles and how he's done things and like he's the kind of guy that strikes me that he could have an entire team that would build an amazing company and it would work and he would just be like, I did this,
Yeah. Yep.
you know? Whereas
Now,
people like you and I are like, our team did this,
yeah. Yep.
right?
No, and I think it does. It takes a big person to be able to say that, I couldn't have done this all on my own.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I got massive praise for a job that I did for restoration where I had four different companies, two restoration companies. I had two restoration companies, two construction companies, and one demolition company. And when I was getting praised by like the insurance reps and the owners, I was like, I couldn't have done it without my team. I had a great
Yeah.
team. I'm like, I appreciate
Yeah.
you guys giving me the kudos, but please thank my team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I'm like, and my team just stood there and they all smiled, like they all kind of turned around, and I've got like 50 guys behind me, men and women that were busting their ass to get this done. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and smile and be like, yeah, no problem. No, these are the people you need to thank. I
Yeah.
helped organize them. I helped keep them on track, but at the end of the day, they did this, not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And I think, you need to take some humility in the sense that someone took the time to train you and help you, and you've learned certain things from certain people throughout your entire life.
Mhm.
And it's their efforts that they've put into you that have
Yeah,
helped you get to where you are.
yeah,
Even the assholes that have tried to screw you over have
Mhm.
taught you something. So
100%.
I think you need to have that humility as you kind of look back and okay, well, how did I get here? Well, I had this person help me do this, and this person taught me that, and this person took a special interest and thought I showed some skill or whatever, and taught me this that
Mhm.
other people don't know. And I I think that's super important to be able to look at that.
I
I
agree.
actually I talked with um, I'll call him my Jedi Master from my engineered air days.
Yeah.
Elnor, he's retired now, but we still talk. And we we had this thing. One of the first jobs he ever sent me on, he sent me to Medicine Hat, and I had no idea how VFDs worked, no idea.
Mhm.
And I just called him up and I said, I guess I should come home. I said, I don't know how to fix this. And he's like, no, go get a hotel. This is your job. It's just like, holy shit. So
You're like,
he
okay.
left me there. I was there for 3 or 4 days figuring this out. I came away from it learning a ton, but he
Yep.
just kind of like, I'm going to pay this guy to learn on the job and figure this out.
Yeah. Figure it out,
And
sink or
that taught
swim.
me a lot.
But that's also the generation that, it doesn't, you can't really do that anymore. Everybody complains. That's what happened with me. That's how I learned, right? I got thrown in, I got thrown to the wolves, sink or swim.
Yep.
So a lot of people that are born, a lot of people that are born probably 87 and then up, Because I'm thinking about the people in my head. A lot of them are about like born about 87, so they're close to their 40s or they're not far from 40.
Yep.
Um, and then up, it was a sink or swim in work.
Yeah.
Because by the time you were old enough to work, there was no oh, let me hold your hand and show you how to do it. It's like, here's the files, go figure it the fuck out.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of sink or swim. I think that's where you find out what you're made of. It's not just about
Yeah.
gathering knowledge, but it's just
Resilience.
do you have the willingness to do it,
Yeah.
to take the ownership and say, yeah, this is my job, this is my responsibility.
Absolutely. I think that there's merit in sink or swim, but I also think there's merit in knowing when to ask. So, and then
Oh
depending on
yeah.
what the response is, I like for me, I want somebody to go in. I would rather somebody come in and ask me and then me give them these are your tasks, please complete them. If they don't understand a task, try it first.
Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, when I was training some guys that were coming up in the field, one of the first things that I would ever ask them would be like, okay, what have you tried?
Hmm.
But I don't know. Go try something, tell me
Hmm.
what happens, and then I'll help you. But if you haven't even tried anything, how am I supposed to help you?
Right? I agree. And that's like, I've walked onto sites and said, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Well, I didn't know how to do this." And I'm like, "So you thought you'd stick your finger in your ass and just sit there? Like you didn't think to maybe call me, call your boss, you
Yeah,
didn't think to maybe call somebody? I mean, how long have you been sitting here for?" And they're like,
yeah.
"Oh, like half an hour." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll make sure to dock that off your pay." Like,
Thank you for admitting
yeah,
that.
thanks for your honesty. And they're like, "Well, why am I being punished for my honesty?" And I'm like, "You're not being punished for your honesty. You're being punished for being stupid and not calling on how to do it." You know, it's like my favorite phrase. I mean, we can't say that anymore. We can't be like, "Oh, you're stupid." We have to be like, "Oh, let's talk about your emotional, position right now. Are you having a mental health day?" Like, we have to get really sensitive about it. And tell you what really pisses me off about it and why I mock it. Because mental health is serious, and there are people who are genuinely struggling with mental
Yeah,
health, and then all of these people that are like in these younger generations, even some of the ones that are millennials, are abusing it. They're
yeah,
abusing it. They're like, "Oh, I need a mental health day," and I'm like, "No, you fucking don't."
yeah.
And then
No,
there's me
it's
sitting here, and I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm like, what the hell is a mental health day? Like, that's a thing? We can do that? Like, I can just call up
that's
and be like, "Hey, boss, I need a day off. I'm on this really good Netflix thing." And I mean, I feel like if I leave now, I'm going to have high anxiety,
yeah, listen, I've got 3 or 4 episodes to finish this whole series. I can't come into work today.
right? I can do it today and then I'll be in tomorrow fresh. Horrible, but it's true because I've talked to so many guys in industry and there's a shit ton of mental health. And it's overwhelming and it breaks my heart, but here these guys are out every day, the same thing, just head down, ass up, head down, ass up, head down, ass up, go home, come to work, go home, come to work, go home, right?
Yep.
And then you've got like 4 20-year-olds on the site and they're like, "Oh yeah, I can't do that, my anxiety's high." And I'm like,
Yeah.
get
It's
get to work.
it's hard to be empathetic to it, like especially when when you have some of the guys in the trades and they're, maybe green and they haven't had that expectation met yet where they're like, well, it's -20 on that roof. Like, I can't work on this today. What the fuck are you talking about? Get up there. It's your job.
That's right.
Like, that thing needs to start running again.
Yeah,
It's your job to make it work. You're
that's
not
right.
waiting till the summer. Like, I'll tell you what, because the thing is, like, I think you have to earn the right to say that. And I'll tell you one of my journeys,
Yep.
as I was learning, I got sent to a pump transfer station one time in the middle of Saskatchewan, middle of a field, couldn't see anything for miles and miles and miles,
Hmm.
and no cell phone reception. Like, there was nothing. I go in, I get this unit back up and running. The building starts heating up, and I'm like, okay, yes. I go back out to my truck. My truck is just like done. I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? Like, am I going to sleep here and wait for someone to come find me?
Jesus.
So I climb into the back of my truck, and I had my oxyacetylene torch. And I was like, okay, Wayne, you got to be careful with this. Too much heat and you're you're cutting through your oil pan, just the right amount of heat, thin that oil out, and away you go.
Yeah.
So I'm underneath my truck, freezing cold, adding heat gently to the oil pan to try and thin it out, and
Yeah.
then get in the truck. It turns over. I'm like, okay, I should have just left it running. But
Yeah.
so when you go through things like that in your life, and you're
Yeah.
like, I could fucking die out here,
Yeah.
and then you have someone that's like, I'm not getting up on that roof. It's too cold. Get up on that roof. I have
Yeah.
no sympathy for you.
Yep.
Dress for it.
Yep. 100%. Because, and I agree
But
with you because I've done the same thing, right? So being in trades, when you're a paper pusher, because I am a paper pusher, I've jumped in the trenches with all of the guys. I have ripped floor. I have gone on the roofs. I have overseen so many different elements of construction. I have jumped in with them. And they'll be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, how am I going to learn what you go through if I don't do it? Right?
you
Minus
have to.
20, there's a burst pipe. I'm there. I'm one of the
Yep.
first ones there, and I'm one of the last ones to leave. And that's what earns you the respect as a person. Great for a woman to do it because then they got nothing to bitch about. But as a person, you're more respected, especially when you're someone who's really good at the paperwork, when you're more of a bureaucrat, right? So
Yeah.
then people are like, oh, she's not scared to go haul the garbage out. She's not scared to bring the materials in. She's not scared to be here before all of us and make sure everything's clear and get all of our safety stuff done and go over everything with us. And it's like, yeah, that's my job. Once you hit a certain point in your career where you're the top dog, no is no longer in your vocabulary.
No, it's
So
just a matter of figuring it out.
that's right. And not only that, but it's like I love these executives that are like, "Oh, I don't do that." The fuck you don't. You do everything. The minute you start getting paid that six-figure plus salary,
Yep.
you now there's no such thing as no. There needs to be more toilet paper. You should know where it is or you can help go get it. You are now basically outside of just doing your everyday task. If someone needs something from you, you got to be able to jump and go do it. That's my personal opinion as someone
Yeah.
who's sat in, high-ranking position. Someone calls me, for God's sakes, I was the director of operations for a restoration company. I had a client come through. Clients don't normally come through to the director of operations. They don't normally. You've got project managers and all this shit beforehand and operations management, but they come to my desk and I'm like, hello. And they're like, hey, we're in Olds and someone hasn't come and we were told someone's going to come and this. And I was like, pardon me? And I'm like, no problem. I'm on my way. I go to the back. I get one of the girls. That's one of the techs. And I said, get in your truck. We're headed to Olds. And I'm like, grab your guy. I'm going to meet you there. I'm on my way. And I told
Yep.
them, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm like, as the director of operations, I am on my way with my crew. And there was three of them and they went in and we looked at the roof and we had to cut out part of the drywall from the interior and we had to get dehues in there. And I was like, and then the only challenge was where the electrical was coming from because they were out in Olds on like an acreage. So we had to run extension cords from their house. And that was over to where their shed was. And because it was like, I call it a shed, but it wasn't like, it was like a huge garage type building. So, but they called it a shed, so I called it a shed. But yeah, and then they came out and they're like, I can't believe you came here. And I was like, why?
Job's got to get done.
And they're like, well, because we've been calling this person. They called three different project managers. They've called, the operations manager. They've called the regional manager. They've called, and I'm like, and nobody came out. And they're like, you're the first person we've gotten to in the last 5.5 months that actually just jumped. And I was like, oh. I'm like, I'm really sorry that happened. I'm like, I'll make sure that my team's on here. And it got done. They're happy. But 5 months and they're getting passed up because, someone else is saying, oh, well, somebody else, like everyone's passing the buck. That's where I'm
Yeah.
like, as an executive, there's no more passing the buck. Like,
Yeah.
you just do it.
Yeah. No,
Right?
and I would agree with that. Like, especially, when you're running your own show and you're small and you're starting, your name is everything.
Yeah.
Like, can you go to every customer that you've ever had and for the most part get like a very, very positive review where they will say, yeah, you know what, it didn't go perfect, but he fixed it. Or it didn't go the way I expected it
Yeah.
to, but he stood behind it.
Yeah.
Or, it was a little bit late, but got it done and apologized and didn't brush it off or make excuses. And
No, I
that's,
agree.
I think that's, kind of in some of the larger companies as they get really, really bigger and impersonal, you
Yeah.
lose a sense of that.
Yep. It's true. It's true. It's because they get so, I mean, you almost kind of have to put up like this, it's almost like a tainted guard because you're no longer in the same realm. You went through everything like we talked about in the beginning, right? The iceberg, right?
Yeah.
Metaphor. And now you've been eaten and bruised and whatever, and you're now you're at the top, the part of the food chain where you want to be inside of your industry, inside of your business. It was where you want to be, and now you kind of have to disassociate with everybody else down below because you know you're going to be on some level hated. And that's why they say it's very lonely at the top,
At the top. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I would
So
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah. So, and that's what they say. And they say you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose this. And it's funny, it's interesting as you start to progress as a business owner, friends of yours that you had for years will start to fall away because they don't understand, especially when you have friends that do the paycheck to paycheck or friends that have, that are employed. They're not employers and they don't understand a lot of it. A lot of them don't get it. Like I have a lot of friends that don't understand that I'm always working when I'm out. The minute I go
Yeah.
out, I'm always working. It's not, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm like waiting for something to happen, but there's always that element of if I see somebody that I've been trying to get a hold of and we're all out in a group setting, I'm gone because I'm going to go
Yeah.
talk to that person.
100%. Yeah.
Even if it's for 2 minutes, just to give them my card. Like in my
Yep.
brain, I'm always working that way.
Well,
It's
yeah, you
never
have
like
to be.
yeah. So,
I
and
mean,
some people, they
I'm
don't
the same
understand
way.
that. Yeah.
Even now, like even though I have salespeople working for me, like if I'm
Mhm.
talking to somebody and oh, what do you do or this that, like I love giving people the little elevator pitch, the I do this and I save people money and we drop
Yeah.
greenhouse gas emissions and the whole little thing, and people are generally interested, and if it's short and if they're interested, they'll come back and talk to you, and even if not, it's just you're always working, right? You're always
Yeah.
like, you don't know who this person is. You don't know who this person knows.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you take this opportunity to tell them who you are and what you do?
Hmm. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. But yeah, but anyways, we are an hour and 21, so I'm gonna wrap us up today because I know you're a
All
busy
right.
guy. Last time when I talked to you this morning, you were like, I'm so busy.
Oh, do you find that like sometimes you have so many things going that you tend to like back burner things and then you're
Yes.
like, oh my God, I need to get to that.
Not often because I'm one of those people that has OCD, and if it's still on my mind, it'll just tick away or I'll forget about it completely. So I'm just like, the faster I can get it off my plate, the better I feel. So if I do like 20 emails, I can do like 20 emails in like 10 minutes.
Good for you. I can't even type that fast.
Do you know what? I'm going to tell you a trick. Do you know you need to go on AI stuff? I do everything through
With ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Yes. So what I do is I take sometimes if I don't have time to think about the response or it's going to be something elaborate or it makes me feel some kind of way because I am an emotional being, I'll just take what they've written to me and I'll throw it into ChatGPT and I'll write respond please. And it'll
Yeah,
come back with a very eloquent response. And I'm like, great.
it is. ChatGPT is unbelievable because
Game changer.
when I was starting to like get into the programming of this, because everything that was in my head had to be put into a controller and I had to see it function.
Yeah.
You can work with other people. I've got a software guy that does this for me now, but in the beginning I was using ChatGPT and I was putting my code in there because I couldn't
Yeah.
understand why it wasn't working,
Yeah.
and it was fixing it for me.
Love
And I was
that.
like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest tool humanity has ever seen."
Right? I
And it's
know.
unreal.
Fixes my website and shit. And then I've got another thing. So I've got so I'm with Podcast AI, which is where my podcasts go through. And they're amazing. And then they have what's called HubSmart, um, which is brand launch AI. So basically I have an AI kind of like virtual assistant. It's awesome.
That's amazing. I should look into
I know.
this.
You should look into this. I will send you the information. 100%. And it's
Okay.
like it's not expensive. It's very affordable. You pay for like the year, and this like you just all you do is you put all your information into it to help it learn who you are and what your business is,
Yep.
and which is super easy because they pull most of it off of your website URL, and then
Yep.
it just spits all these things out and it spits out your avatars and everything, like so your client avatars, and then it just goes. You just that's what I've been building right now. I've been built because I just joined it, so I went through my onboarding and then I'm just building it right now. It has like your logos and everything. So when you miss your call, it will pick up your call and be like, and you can have like different voices on it, which is really even cooler. So it'll be like, I'm thinking I might choose Ryan Reynolds' voice. You've reached Lisa's AI for LPM Enterprises, with Ryan Reynolds. That'd be hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. He is Canadian.
It's true. I can't see you using Trump.
I mean, hard no. Not unless I want to sound like a idiot, then maybe. That's my
It's going to be
personal
terrific.
opinion.
It'll be the greatest phone call ever. No one's
Oh
seen a
my-
phone call like this.
Right? I mean, I might just because then people will be like, "Oh my God, is that true?" Just as like a joke. I can't because the Canadian my Canadian blood runs so deep I can't do it. I'd feel like a traitor, but I mean on some level it would be comical if I'm being honest. You're like you're welcome to LPM Enterprises. What do you want? I'll tell you what we're doing. Oh my God. But anyways, thank you so much, Wayne, for hanging out with me today. You are amazing.
Absolutely.
I hope some of you will go out and check out Frostfire. It is an amazing company that Wayne has spearheaded himself and has a great team. Matt is one of his sales guys that's out. Matt's still with you, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, Matt's a great guy. So Matt is one of those guys that you might see at some of the golf tournaments, but I guess I'll see you at the Simcoe one, so that'll be fun.
Absolutely. That'll be good.
It
I'll
will
buy
be
you a
good.
drink. How's that?
I'm down. I'm always down
All
for a
right.
drink. All right. So thanks everybody for joining us today. And as always, be good and don't do anything crazy.
Okay. Thank you.